Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Today's guest is a future Hall of Famer who goes down as one of the greatest switch hitters in baseball history. During his 19-year career with the Atlanta Braves, Chipper Jones helped lead the team to the 1995 World Series championship and 11 straight division titles from 95 to 2005. Just a country kid from Florida with dreams of making it to the big leagues. Chipper was the number 1 overall pick in the 1990 draft and went on to become an 8-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger, and the 1999 National League MVP. He is the only switch hitter in Major League history to post a 300 or better career batting average and hit at least 300 homers. He hit 468, by the way. On today's episode, Chipper takes us behind the scenes of the Atlanta Braves clubhouse. He reflects on the highs and lows of being a professional athlete and shares what he learned in his nearly 2 decades in the big leagues. You can now follow Chipper on Twitter at RealCJ10 and get his new book, Ballplayer, out now. Cue up Crazy Train, Chipper Jones' longtime walk-up song, and help me welcome baseball great Chipper Jones. So Chipper, you're a country kid from, kind of a small town in Florida, and you grew up playing baseball, I know, with your dad in the backyard and always dreamed of, playing in the big leagues one day. And how I know your dad and sort of your youth was a big part of what shaped you. Tell me about your upbringing a little bit and how it shaped who you are today.
Well, just to give you a quick synopsis, I'm from a blue collar town, Central Florida, called Pearson, and it is the fern capital of the world. Yes, decorative greens are grown all over the place, and everybody's in the fern business. And pretty much everybody who graduates from high school in my hometown, they go into dad's fern business after they graduate. My parents took a different approach. They used the fern business as punishment. If I made a C on a report card, out in the fernery, weed and cut and pack and ship and all this kind of stuff. So
do you have a lot of ferns in your house now, man, I bet?
Yeah. But it was kind of weird how, our baseball field in the backyard, the fence was actually the fernery. So, not only did I get punished with it, but when I hit a home run, the ball went on top of the fernery, and it was kind of, that was the best thing in the world for me, was to hit a ball on top of the fernery. So I had a bunch of different things for me. Some of them made me happy, some of them not. But I think they really pushed me to not stay home, not to be satisfied with working in daddy's fernery after high school. I realized early on that I had a gift, not just in baseball. I played football, basketball, I ran a little track too. Trust me, I always knew where my bread was buttered in the springtime. I just really had the urge to play baseball at its highest level from a very, very early age. And my mother and father allowed me to cultivate that.
And your dad was out in the yard with you all the time, wasn't he?
100%. Yeah. I mean, every Saturday afternoon we would watch the game of the week on, with Tony Kubek and Joe Garagiola. And then his favorite team was the Orioles, and my favorite team was the Dodgers. So we'd go out in the backyard and take the lineups, and that's really where I got the switch hitting start. Having to imitate those lineups whenever.
Wow.
In my case, when Mike Scioscia came up, or Kenny Landreau came up, or Reggie Smith came up, with Monday, I had to hit left-handed. And not only that, I had to imitate the batting stance. So it allowed me to be a versatile type of hitters to kind of experiment with different ways to hit in hopes of finding something that was comfortable, for me later on in life. So, yeah, it was, there were a lot of little lessons that, I didn't realize it then, but now that my dad did a really good job kind of using me into it.
So was it, because you were one of the best switch hitters in the game, and that versatility, I know when you came up through the minor league system and you changed positions a few times, right?
Yeah, I did. I came up as a shortstop, and I think I had never played a day in my life at third base until I got to the big leagues. But honestly, I'd only played a handful of games as an amateur in left field. But I was a good enough athlete. I felt like I could play all over the field. Obviously, didn't want to catch, but pitched a lot. Growing up, felt like I could play the field spot. Obviously, third base. Picking it over at first base would have been my forte. I never, really played over there. But I love playing the outfield. I love playing center field. Just having a broad look at the game and having everything happen in front of you. That was a big thrill for me. So, when they came up and after Ronnie Gant was the dog in the motorcycle accident, I believe it was spring of '94. They came up and asked me, if I had ever played left field before, and I was like, "Yeah, I played left field all through my
ton."
So they threw me out there in the mix, and unfortunately, I blew out my knee in the spring of '94 and wasn't able to play until '95. But I think it was just a matter of I got to do something to get on their radar, and I was already on their radar.
Right.
I wanted them, whenever they had a hole at the big league level, I wanted my name at the top of the list that was going to fill that hole, whether it was shortstop, whether it was third, whether it was just the outfield, just get me in the big leagues because I want to be playing baseball at a high level.
And so that versatility, you were pretty intentional about making sure that you did that so you could create more opportunities for yourself, right? It sounds like, which is fantastic.
100%.
Wow.
When you're coming up in AA and AAA, you just want to get your foot in the door,
Totally.
And as well as I do, being here in Atlanta, that in the early '90s, the Braves lineup was pretty set. It was the Terry Pendletons and Wowzers and the Lefties and the Griffs and Justice and we kind of had a couple of center fielders there, but you had the Ronnie Gants and Tuscos and whatnot. So, it was pretty hard to crack that lineup. But if there was a nick anywhere amongst any of those guys, I wanted to be the first guy on the list. And I knew that once I could just get my foot in the door, that eventually I would kick it open. And it finally happened in '95.
Wow. Well, and you were in the clubhouse, right, in the '90s and early 2000s when we won, an incredible sort of, I think it was 14 straight division titles, and you were there for I think 10 of them.
11, yeah.
11 of them. Wow. So, what do you think made you guys so successful? Clearly everybody was incredibly talented, right? It was incredibly, a great lineup, obviously, of 25 guys. But what do you think else made you guys so successful?
I think the ability for John Sherholtz and Bobby Cox to be able to keep such a dominant pitching staff together for so long. It's hard to keep a roster full of 25 guys with the egos, that professional athletes have, to keep them, kind of pointed in the same direction, all with the same goal. And, I think it's a rarity to have the personalities that we had on the pitching staff. You had Smoltzy, who's the class clown, and you got, Doggy, who's the professor, and Glavin, who was kind of the rock,
Yeah.
he was real poised and never really let people in his circle, all that kind of stuff. But every fifth day, no matter how he felt, he went out there and gave you a chance to win. And and I think they set a good example. They're all good friends, not just on the field, but just as big competitors off the field with their golf games.
Yeah.
Poker. I mean, they could be playing tiddlywinks and they'd be talking smack to each other, you know. So,
oh, dude, I heard some stories about the back of those airplanes. Some of those games, man.
Yeah, it was
expensive.
Pretty fun, to be honest.
Expensive.
But, you know, and I think everybody just kind of followed suit. You know, I think whoever was on the mound that day was our leader, the leader of our ball club. Obviously, Bobby Cox had a huge influence on everyone. I think most people would tell you that they would sacrifice, you know, a little money, sacrifice some years, you know, on their contract just to play for Bobby Cox. And guys would run through a wall for him. And I'm consider myself extremely fortunate to be able to play 17 and 19 under Bobby.
What? Yeah. I mean, you know, Bobby, to me, I mean, one of the things that I remember talking to Bobby about was just, you know, he's just he's just a baseball guy, right? I mean, he would get down to the yard so early and just kind of love to be around you guys. And, you know, but he was so pretty laid back guy, but he was ejected so much, right, from big league games because he always had your guys' back, you know, but give me some Bobby stuff.
Bobby was probably the nicest guy you'll ever meet. You just don't ever hear anyone say anything bad about Bobby. And to be honest with you, you could ask any one of those 160 some guys that ejected Bobby throughout the years, and I guarantee you none of them would even say anything bad about Bobby. He was a guy that, you know, he would flush it after the game was over. He would take the lineup card up, you know, the next day after getting thrown out of a heated, you know, conversation with an umpire, and he'd be laughing and shaking hands with him, you know, the very next day. So I think people respected that, and look, you know, I mean, it's an intense game at this level. You know, they've kind of taken some of that element of the game out of it now because of instant replay, and you don't have the ability to argue with umpires anymore.
Right.
I think that takes away from some of the entertainment value because there are some Bobby Cox moments to be had out there. And I think, you know, get the crowd fired, get the team fired up. People say that, you know, baseball is boring to watch, but it was a heck of a lot more fun to watch it when Bobby was out there doing on some umpires' ear, you know, and
sure.
thrown out of the game. He always had our back. When he broke the record in Atlanta for most ejections, it was on my behalf. I got up at like the 8th inning of the game. I was 0 for 4. You know, on a pitch outside, Chet Barrett and I didn't see eye to eye on the strike zone that night. Bobby comes out, gets thrown out of the game, keeps me from getting thrown out of the game. It comes back around to me in the 10th inning. First and third, hit a double in the gap, game over.
Yeah.
And, you know, if he doesn't keep me in the game, they might still be playing, you know?
Yeah, so right.
It's just one of those things where he would take the brunt of it, keep his good players in the game, and you know, when the manager's got your back like that, you can't help but kill yourself to try and make it fly.
And you had a ton of guys that kind of showed you the ropes when you came up, like Deion Sanders and Dave Justice and obviously Maddox. And what was your kind of relationship like with each other, kind of in the clubhouse? I mean, what made those relationships so special?
Yeah, I think DJ Justice really took me under his wing from the get-go. I learned a lot about the mental side of the game from DJ. I learned a lot about what to say and what not to say to the media. You know, from time to time, from Dave to he was obviously a lightning rod at times, but the fact of the matter is he prepared me to be able to lead once, you know, all the guys left and I was the guy. You know, he taught me how to lead. He told me that one day that, you know, your team, you're going to be running the show and you got to lead by example and all these kind of things. but I was fortunate enough to make it to my late 20s and early 30s before, the Manasquan and Smoltz all funneled off, McGriff and Justice all kind of funneled off. David was a huge, really a godsend for me, because, he taught me a ton, as far as Dion, our relationship was more, just have fun. Dion was, as you know, Dion's two totally different people. When you get him behind closed doors and nobody's watching, he's one of the most fun, just carefree guys that you're ever gonna meet. It's a hoot to be around. And then when the cameras come on,
right.
He becomes prime time.
Right.
So, it's a little bit different persona there, but Dion, I can remember, I told a couple of stories about Dion, in my book, because they've stuck with me, forever. And there's some of the funniest things that I can ever remember happening, on the baseball field. So he was, and to be honest with you, I mean, Dion, I put Dion on such a pedestal because he was probably the greatest athlete that I had ever been around. I mean, I have never seen someone so fast. It was unbelievable to watch him hit a triple. It was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. It was just, it was awe-inspiring to be able to watch him when he was playing the game well.
Yeah. Well, you mean to watch him round second and get into third and just how fast? I mean, he was like a deer.
And effortless.
Yeah.
Effortless.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know if there'll ever be somebody who can go first to third as fast as he did. Or, excuse me, from home to third as fast.
Well, and you just talked about your new book, Ballplayer, and I read it, and what caught me immediately is kind of in the opening. You sort of you're describing kind of a game, but you're describing kind of a game, but it's not one of your highlights. You sort of talk about kind of throwing an error that you made in your final major league game, in your final big league game in 2012, which which you kind of said immediately kind of cost you, the 1-game playoff against the Cardinals. And you end it by saying baseball was going to force me to fail one more time. What did baseball teach you about failure?
Well, you fail 70% of the time at the plate, and you're considered in the running to be a Hall of Famer.
Right.
So you better learn how to feel failure. I think after 19 years of playing in the big leagues and making 6,000 or 7,000 outs, at the plate and making errors in the field and losing, you play 162 games a year, you're going to lose anywhere from 60 to 80 of them during the course of a season. So, I mean, when you add it all up, there's a ton of failure in this game.
Sure.
And the mentally weak will not last. It's an exercise in perseverance.
Yeah.
It really is. And I think one of the reasons for starting the book the way that we did, quite honestly, I wanted to start the book with the unexpected. I think everybody picks up a baseball player's autobiography and they automatically think, well, it's gonna hook you with, big walk-off homer,
right?
This, that, and the other, and I wanted to go a different way. This is a sport that beats you up, and if you don't have the right mindset, it will spit you out. And I just kind of wanted people to see, the other side of things and let them know that, hey, maybe this book, might be a little different. I think ultimately writing this book, sure, you're going to talk about some good times and we had a ton of good times here in Atlanta. But I think if you're going to write a book like this, a truthful one, you're going to have to expose some of the, the tough times, some of the warts that you may have. And I think that's why it's, up to this point, been so well received.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so what, like, Chipper, if you went, which didn't happen much, but if you had a couple days in a row where you were 0 for 16, right? And you're driving to the yard, you're 0 for your last 16, or, or maybe you had an error the night before that lost the game. I mean, what did you tell yourself so that you could recover fast when that would happen?
Today's the day.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, you keep telling yourself, today's the day. Eventually, today will be the day. I mean, it's kind of one of those mind over matter type things. I think that's what separates, the good players from the players that struggle is maybe those other guys that are 0 for 16 come to the park and they think to themselves, I'm never going to get another hit.
Mm-hmm.
How on earth am I going to get out of this?
Mm-hmm.
I have no confidence. Whereas the good players come to the park and say, gosh darn it, today's the day. And I'm gonna put 4 good at bats up there. We'll, get a couple hits, and that 0 for 16 will be an afterthought.
Right.
After today. It may be, it may not be, but at least you're coming to the park every single day with the right frame of mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny. I represented Frank Core, and he had some sort of runs like that, right? And it always just it was killing me as much as it was killing him, and it's like, to me, it's making sure that you send yourself the right messages in those moments, because I always worried that sometimes Jeff might be coming to the yard going, oh my gosh, if I go for another 4 today, I'm going to be 0 for 20. And you know what I mean? Instead of shifting that story that you're telling yourself in those moments. I mean, is huge.
Well, you could always tell, Jeff came up as probably one of the most confident kids that I've ever seen. I think his first couple years in the league, he had that kind of mentality.
Yeah.
That's what this game can do to you. I mean, if you stay down long enough, eventually you start thinking, can I play this game anymore?
Do I belong at this level?
The game passing me by? Has my peak come and gone already?
Right.
All this kind of stuff when, the mindset should be, I'm going to play this game until I'm 40. Today's the day, and there's nobody that can get me out.
Yeah.
One thing that my mother instilled in me when I was really young, she said, whenever you walk out on that baseball field, you think in your mind that you're the best player out there. You might not be. There's many times I stepped on the field with Barry Bonds, who I consider to be the best ball player that I've ever seen on a uniform, or an Albert Pujols, or one of the really good players in the game. But I walked to that plate. I had it in my mind that there was nobody that could get me out if they threw the ball over the plate. If I made them throw the ball over the plate, I was going to whack it somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes they drop, sometimes they don't. But it's that kind of confidence that carries you through a lot of those rough stretches. I didn't have very many 0 for 16s or 0 for 20s.
Right.
Because, gosh darn it, maybe I was just a little more mentally tough than the rest of those guys. So, it's just a difference in mindset. Everybody can get there. It's just, whether it's just what people are made of, whether they're mentally tough enough or not.
Well, and I used to see guys that would come to the yard and they'd be 0 for whatever, and then they'd start changing things. And I always wondered, right? Like, is it really, are you really ready to start changing things? Because like you said, 70% of the time you're not going to have success at the plate anyway, usually, right? Or you're a stud if you do more than that. So, and I'd see guys start going, oh, maybe my left elbow's, dipping, or maybe I got, and I'd go, wait a minute, are we really ready to start tweaking things? How did you, do you know what I mean? Trust yourself enough, right? To not maybe start making changes to your swing or to your routine, or.
Well, I think there's, it kind of varies. I think if you're watching film and you're 0 for 15 and you do see something mechanically that you're maybe could be doing better, then obviously, it is time to think. But I've seen guys, Tilly Johnson was a perfect example of a kid that played, here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I remember him.
For
Yeah.
a while. He could be 20 for his last 20, and he'd come up to me and go, "Man, I don't feel good. Can you watch me?" I'm like, "Bro, you're 20 for 20,
Don't mess with it.
Hey, yeah, you're 10 for your last 12. You're swinging the back great. You got 4 home runs in that span. Confidence should be at an all-time high for you, not you looking to tinker with your swing." And that's what sometimes guys get in their own way. They get in their own head. And unfortunately, guys that have, and I've run across Kelly, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and he has grown up so much. And now he's the guy that the young guys are going to, still in the game, still, coming off the bench, knows his role and whatnot, left-handed, will pop off the bench.
Yeah.
But he's the guy that's tutoring, mentoring these young guys. And it always warms my heart when I see, a kid that I, mentored or tutored coming up, taking on that same role. It really warms my heart. And it really kind of, gets me to say to them, "You see what a punk you were when you were a kid, And
Totally.
Now you're getting a little taste of it."
Oh, that's awesome.
We have some laughs with it.
That's awesome. In the book too, you tell a funny story about Game 1 of the World Series. Kind of being on the same day of opening day of deer hunting season in Georgia.
Okay.
And kind of how you sneak out to go deer hunting with your dad the morning of the World Series. One of the games, and that probably wasn't one of your regular pregame routines. You know what I mean?
No, it wasn't. But here's the thing, I'm 23 years old. I'm playing in the first game of the World Series. I'm facing Oral Hershiser in Game 1 in Atlanta, and I mean, who in their right mind is going to be able to sleep? Who
That's
in their
awesome.
right mind is going to be able to relax the day of the game? And one thing hunting has done for me, it's so cathartic, it's so therapeutic for me to climb 20, 25 feet up a tree and just eat, just coexist. The actual harvesting of an animal, that's secondary, but golly, I get so much of my important decisions made. I get to spend, obviously I have a cameraman with me, up in the tree and being able to spend time with a good friend and talk things out. I mean, all those things put you at peace. And that particular day, I was a nervous wreck.
Sure.
I couldn't sleep. I said, you know what, I'm gonna drive 2 hours down to Macon, and I'm gonna go hunting with my dad till about 10 or 11 o'clock. I'm gonna drive back to Atlanta and catch an hour or two on the sleep on the training room table, and then I'll be ready to go. And even though we go for 4 that night, but it was pull hard a couple times. And we ultimately won the game thanks to Greg Maddox. But that was a story that I think gives you a little insight into who I am, more so as a person. Because so much of my youth and my teenagers revolved around the outdoors. I love it so much. I love it. Anytime I get the opportunity. I mean, you should have seen the look on my wife's face when I saw, at 11, 12 o'clock at night, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going down to Macon to go hunt in the morning. She was like, "Excuse me? What?" And
I bet.
But anybody who knows me really, really well, they would understand. They would be like, "Yeah, that's totally something Chipper would do."
Well, it got you in the right frame of mind, and why lay there in bed and stare at the ceiling, right? I mean, go do something that puts you at peace. And what was your normal kind of pregame routine, right?
I would usually leave home to go to the ballpark about 1:30 in the afternoon, get there about 2. Usually get something to eat, do whatever I needed to do in the training room. Obviously, you always got something wrong with you.
Right.
I mean, could be an ingrown toenail, could be a pulled hammy, whatever.
Right.
Sore shoulder. So you always got something wrong with it. And then, get taped up. I was huge pregame wise, making sure that I got locked in with who was pitching that night. So I did a ton of video work throughout my career. If I was facing, let's say, Al Leiter on the bat, I would go in and I would watch his last 3 starts. I wanted to know all of his numbers in those 3 starts, strikeout to walk ratio. Is he striking out? Is he walking guys? Have trouble locating? How many innings did he go? Is he 3-0? Is he 1-2, 0-3? Whatever. I want to know where he is, frame of mind wise, confidence wise. And then I'll go and I'll watch probably my last 10 to 15 at bats off of all night.
Got it.
And how he tried to pitch me. And all of this data, all of this information is going into forming a game plan for that particular night. And it didn't matter if it was Al Leiter, it didn't matter if it was, some rookie, right out of the bushes. It was the same every single day. And then I would go through their relievers and watch, their last couple outings and whatnot. So I was probably a little more prepared mentally than most guys, coming into a game. But that was my routine. Once I got done with my video work, we were out on the field for BP. Get done with BP, come back in, shower time, get a little, pregame snack, which was 4 chocolate chip cookies and an orange Gatorade for me.
That sounds outstanding. Jeez. Was that for your entire career, 4 chocolate chip cookies?
100%.
That's incredible, man.
Cookies and a orange Gatorade. So not the healthiest thing to do. It's not what I would,
recommend for a 15-year-old driving.
Tell kids to do, but hey, I think it's more of a.
Was it a superstition deal a little bit too?
Yeah, it was. After a while,
yeah.
It became superstition. So, I didn't even really like chocolate chip cookies all that much at the end of my career.
Well, BB, your agent should have gotten you a little deal with Gatorade.
I know, right? Well, I mean, how great would it have been for me to have a deal with Chips Ahoy? I mean, Chips Ahoy,
for sure.
I mean, come on.
Well, we still got time, man.
My agent's lacking.
Well, and so, how did you, as you kind of went through your career, I mean, I know there was some stuff off the field personally, and you did an amazing job, clearly, of sort of compartmentalizing these things. And, a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, I mean, everybody, is going to work every day and they got stuff in their life, right? I mean, they've got kids and families and wives and ex-wives and whatever. How did you, mentally, how did you departmentalize so that you could get to the yard and do what you did at such a high level? And that was always one of the things as an agent that fascinated me, right? Because whether I was beside Smoltz or these guys and I would see all the off the field stuff that was going on in their lives, and then they would step out there and go 2 for 4, 3 for 4, throw, 7 scoreless innings. And I was like, wow, how'd you do that?
And lots of practice. It was, I'll put it to you this way. If I had a camera following me around, if reality TV had been the in thing in the mid to late 90s, I would have had the best show on TV. It was a calamity. It was, I was completely out of control, didn't know, which way was up, except at 7 o'clock every night. I was just one of those guys that could, after a while, detach. I could, like you say, compartmentalize. It took some time. I can remember going into Bobby Cox's office in 1997. I was playing like crap. I was, 2 from my last 25. I'd made a couple errors. Just really, quite honestly, struggling to get to the park and play every day because my life was in such shambles. And it basically took me going in and saying, Bobby, I apologize. I'm playing terrible. I know it. I go, but my life is falling apart. And I was beat down, and I just needed to talk to somebody. And Bobby and I, we sat in the office and talked for an hour. And he said, you know what? Take a couple days, take the rest of the weekend off. We got Monday off, give you 3 full days. Whatever it is that is the problem, take care of it. Go get it.
Deal with
it. Get it worked out, and then come back, with a clear conscience. And that's really when I decide, you know what, I got to come clean. I got to, cleanse my conscience, so to speak, and then start to deal with the consequences. And you'd be amazed that once the monkey was off my back, sure, there, when it comes to telling your wife about affairs and adultery and all this kind of stuff, that's like the hardest thing I've ever had to do. But once you come clean with it and you start to deal with it, you'd be surprised how that monkey gets lifted off your back. Yes, there's going to be some hard times ahead. Yes, there's going to be, you don't know what the future holds as far as, your personal life, but you're out with it. It's a tremendous weight off your shoulders. You're able to talk about it on a daily basis to continue to cleanse yourself. And then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, 3 for 5 last night, 2 for the next day, 4 for the next day. Once that's off your back, you go out and you just start playing baseball. And it became during that period of time, baseball was my sanctuary.
That was your safe place.
I would get to the park at noon, so I didn't have to listen to it. I didn't have to deal with it. And I wouldn't come home till midnight. That was 12 hours a day. I could kind of get away from it. So baseball was more of a saving grace than anything else.
Well, it's amazing when you look at your career and some of the stuff you had to deal with, and you still executed on the field. It's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. One of the things that I always think about, I think it's always hard for athletes, to retire, and particularly when they played the game as long as you did. How did you transition, and how did you get clear on making that decision, and how did you make that transition? Because I saw so much athletes, it's just hard to step away, because what you love is, like you've said, the routine, the 12 hours at the yard, the conversations in the clubhouse, all the stuff that happens even off the field in the clubhouse, I know is so special. How'd you prepare for that? How'd you get clear on that? And then tell me about your world now.
It was easier than I thought.
Wow.
I thought that it was, I was going to really, really struggle. And I think people closest to me thought that I was really, really going to struggle. My dad always said, one day you'll just wake up and you'll know,
Wow.
And, I was starting to get that feeling more than once a week, and after, the 2011 season, that off season, getting ready, I wasn't quite as hungry to go prepare for, 162 game schedule again. I came into spring training, and we were down there for, I don't know, a week or 10 days, and I woke up one morning, and my back was killing me. My knees were aching. my right shoulder was about to fall off. And I said, you know what? I'm done.
Right.
I mean,
I'm out.
I can't do this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I went to the ballpark that day and I sat down with Frank and John Shearhouse and said, you know, it's come. I'm not gonna quit on the team right now, even though that's kind of where I'm at. But you know, at the end of the year, I'm done. And I had a $10 million option for 2013.
Right.
You know, so
right.
It wasn't about, you know, the money. It was about, man, I just want to wake up and not have my knees hurt. Or I want to wake up and you know,
go hunting,
go to the beach with the wife, you know, or you know, something. And at that point, and ironically, okay, so I have the conversation with Frank Grant and John Shearhouse. I go out and I bust up my knee, tear meniscus in my knee while we're stretching.
Oh my gosh.
All right, so the body is falling apart. I had to go on the DL. I had to have surgery. I missed the first 4 games of the year. Now, that being said, I had an awesome time in 2012, my last year. The group of guys that we had there in Atlanta, great group to play with. I've never had so much fun, but it was almost as therapeutic as, you know, when I was telling you about some of the rough times I was going through in my first marriage and some of the admissions. And once I came out, said, you know what, it's over after this year. It's over. Done.
I'm done.
All of a sudden, the weight of am I going to continue to play? Am I not? Kind of came off my shoulders, and man, it was like I was 15 again, man. I just had all the balance in my step, and you know, look forward to coming to the ballpark every day, and really played well. You know, my final year in the big leagues, and everybody said, you can't, you know, kind of like they did with Big Papi last year. You can't quit. You're still producing at the big league level. It's not about that. It's about, I'm my body. I played 2,500 major league regular season games. I'm telling how many more spring training games throughout, you know, 23 years in the organization. No telling how many playoff games throughout, you know, the 12, 13, 14 times that I personally went to the postseason. My body was telling me, I'm not going to be able to take you much further. At that point, you have to say, I got 6 kids at home.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
At that point, I had 4 kids at home.
Right.
It's time. You know, I mean, start taking the vacations with the family that you missed out on. Start going to, you know, T-ball games and Little League games and football games and all this kind of stuff, and start doing some of the things that you've always wanted to do. And that was where I was mentally at that point.
Well, what's so cool? I mean, you had a life away from the field, it sounds like. I mean, you had a life away from the game. And which to me is the key, right? I mean, that's what allowed you to step away and not look back, it sounds like, or not. You know, I mean, you had other interests, whether it was hunting or the family or whatever. I mean, that is huge.
And not only that, I think if I had been in the relationships that I was in early on in my career, I probably would have kept on playing because, quite frankly, I didn't really look forward to coming home.
Got it.
I was at a point in 2012 where I was with a lady that I absolutely adore, that absolutely adores me. I look forward to coming home. I look forward to spending time with her. And that also, you know, made the transition easier. I think, you know, not wanting to come home after games and wanting to leave early for games, that's a recipe for disaster.
Sure.
Fortunately, those days are behind me. And to be honest with you, I miss 2 days a year. I miss opening day, you know, first of April. Everybody always says, man, you look like you still play. Well, yeah, looks are deceiving. That's it. Because you know what? I can probably, from a skill set standpoint, still go out there and play the game. But
Right.
you know what? April 2nd is coming, and I got to do it all over again. And then April 3rd, and by the time we get to the end of the first week, I'm gonna be like, what in God's name am I doing out here? You know?
Sure.
And, you know, I miss opening day, and I miss obviously the first game of the playoffs and stuff like that. It's such a, I don't know, I guess it's the element of everybody being 0-0 and everybody having a chance to win a championship. And I miss, you know, some of the, you know, fraternity type things that go on in and around the clubhouse and whatnot. But that's about it.
What was speaking of the clubhouse, what was the craziest practical joke you were a part of? I mean, I know there's just endless, and I'd love a kangaroo court story, you know, from the clubhouse.
Oh man. I always like the lighting the shoestrings on fire on the bench. I always thought that, for some reason, I always thought that was hilarious because, I mean, they did it to me one time in '94 when I was on the DL after I blew out my knee in spring training. They did it to me, and I completely wigged out. I almost blew out my knee again, you know, trying to stomp it out. But you have spikes on, so if you take one foot and try and stomp it out,
it doesn't work.
You're stomping on the top of your foot with a metal spike. I mean, it's really pretty hilarious until, you know, obviously somebody lands on the DL because of it. And, you know, all bets are off.
Right. What about in the clubhouse? I mean, kangaroo court, any good stories there?
I think, I go through a couple, you know, in the book. I mean, a lot of people ask me about Greg Maddox and, you know, what's he like? Is he, you know, as stoic as he is on the field? This dude is the dirtiest human being.
I remember you telling me that.
I mean, he is, people always say, you know, tell me something that I don't know about the Braves. And they're always shocked that Greg Maddox is one of the, you know, grossest guys ever. I mean, just to run down a small list of things that he used to do whenever kids would come up and get their first base hit, he would ask for the baseball. Well, he would sit there for, you know, 6 or 7 innings, and he would wipe stuff that comes out of your nose, you know, on the ball. So when you go up and you get your ball's waiting for you in your locker. You know, it had a bunch of Greg Maddox mucus on it, you know, and various other things. You know, he would come up and start a conversation with you in the shower, all the while, you know, urinating on your leg. I mean, things such as that. So you always had to
be ready.
Mind your P's and Q's whenever Greg Maddox was there. Have your head on a swivel would be a good term.
Well, and so who was the toughest pitcher you ever faced?
I get that one a lot. Probably the toughest guy, and I would have to say Roger Clemens. You know, I didn't get I saw Maddox Glavine multiple ton and in spring training every year, and I actually got a chance to face Glavine and Maddox, you know, later on after they moved on. But the hardest guy that I ever faced just to make contact against was Roger Clemens. You know, a lot of guys have stuff. Yeah. But most of those guys can't pitch with that dominant stuff. I mean, pitch with it. You know?
Right.
I'm talking about big arm, you know, plus breaking stuff, or be able to locate it. Most of the guys who have the dominant stuff are brain dead heavers, you know, that are going to get away with mistakes. Roger Clemens didn't make mistakes. He had great angle. Balls that would look low would be caught right at the knees. Balls that looked outside would be right on the corner. You know, I came back one time, we were facing him in Houston, and I struck out. And I came back, it was the first inning, hadn't even been out in the field yet, and the roof was closed, so it wasn't that hot. And I came back to the dugout, and I was sweating bullets. I just went like 8 or 9 pitches with Clemens.
Right.
And Eric Kinsky says, dude, are you sick? You're sweating bullets. I was like, bro, I just had to work for that at bat right there. And I didn't even put the ball in play, you know? So,
right.
You know, he was the guy for me that whenever I knew that we were facing him, I knew I was in for a tough battle that day.
Right. So Chipper, last question. You know, you were the number 1 pick in the 1990 draft out of high school. What do you wish you knew then? You know, because it's such a different, you know, who you were, right, when you came out as a first-round draft pick in 90 and who you've become after all these years in the big leagues. You've learned, obviously, just a ton. What do you wish you knew?
I would go back and smack me upside the head. You know, I mean, just I was an idiot. You know, I think the mistakes that I've made, you know, throughout my life have kind of molded me into the person that I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really be disappointed. Obviously, at this point in some of the decisions I made, I wish I could go back and change some things. But if I knew then what I know now, I would, you know, I would wait to do some of the things that I did, you know, until I became ready. You know, I think it's easy to sit here and say, man, never should have gotten married, you know, but I would have still made some of the same stupid mistakes that I made. I can sit here now and say, yeah, you know, I wasn't ready to get married until I was 38, 39, 40 years old. A lot of people can't wait that long, but I just, you know, I think I would have kept my mouth shut a little more as a young guy. I was kind of I guess you could say, Bryce Harper of the greatest organization. Young, brash, cocky, you know, had the world by the tail. You know, outspoken at times on a team that was full of guys that weren't outspoken, you know. So it didn't. Dude, I got called into the principal's office so many times, the Bobby's office so many times. Hey, Chip, could you shut up? You know, like a week. Like I don't want to read a quote from you in the paper.
Okay.
I just need some, you know, one of those kind of talks with Chipper. I wish I could get back and, you know, smack him around a little bit and really give him some insight into, you know, how I handled the last 3 or 4 years of my career, how I've handled the 5 years since I've been out, the person that you have become, and, you know, hopefully tell him or coach him to get to that point a little earlier in life. Life would have been a lot better, a lot less heartache and down times if I could have just beat some sense into him.
Well, I mean, I bet because you're working with the Braves a little bit now, right?
I'm sorry?
Aren't you working with the Braves a little bit now?
I am. I'm a special assistant to the general manager. Yep.
Wow. But I bet that's pretty powerful for them to put you in a room with their first round picks or their second round, right?
It's been a lot of fun.
I bet.
We have had more fun down in the bushes in the minor leagues, working with those guys. You know, I mean, I walk into a big league clubhouse. You can't tell a big league ball player what to do. You know, hey, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But the young guys, they're like sponges.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They look you in the eye. They can tell that they're listening to what you're saying and not looking at the back of your skull while you're talking. You know?
Right.
So,
that's awesome.
It's been really fun to go down to spring training and see some of the young prospects and know that help is coming to, you know, an organization that is in full struggle mode right now. But you know, it's going to take some time, a little longer than we initially thought. But man, we got some players that I'm really, really excited about.
That's awesome.
That are coming up that are going to help this Buffalo win, hopefully sooner rather than later.
Wow. Thanks, as always, for listening. And if you missed an episode, you can listen to previous episodes on iTunes or on mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be a game changer.
Drum and hold on. The sun came out today. We're born again.